Okay, I'm going to get started again. I see we've run overtime a little bit, and but anyway, that's what you get when you ask a linguist to summarize his work. Is an awful lot to talk about, and we have maybe 20 minutes more or so things to talk about. I don't know. It's very hard to gauge the timing on something like this. Anyway, the night class in Kenai meets on Tuesday night at Wildwood, and you are welcome to visit or to attend. And this year, Peter and Fedosia are teaching, and hopefully Bertha will be rejoining them soon. And this is made possible through funds through the Alaska Native Language Center to pay the instructors for their time for one night a week. Well, last year that was the only thing going in way of teaching the Dena'ina language. This year we have bilingual programs in 3 Dena'ina villages in Tyonek, Nundalton, and Pedro Bay. There are 3 teachers in Tyonek, 1 in Pedro Bay, and 2 in Nundalton. I'm very happy about this and hope that these programs can continue. Because of the development of school programs, now we've had 2 Dena'ina language workshops. The first one was this summer in August in Dillingham, which is the first time that any group of Dena'ina speakers got together to work on their language and to learn how to write, to study the writing system of their language. This was in Dillingham. It was a lot of fun. People reestablished and made social contacts that they didn't have before, and was very, very good. We got a lot done. And the second one we had was this past month in Tyonek in early October. We had a workshop which was our largest Dena'ina language workshop to date, and there we had all of the dialects well represented. We had elders from Eklutna and Nancy Lake and Kenai, and we had the second oldest man from Lime Village there. We had a young fellow from Stony River who speaks 2 Athabascan languages there. We had the teachers from Nundalton and Pedro Bay, and the teachers from Tyonek, and then other people from Tyonek there. They had a nice potlatch dinner for us toward the end of that. I think the language workshops have done a lot to make the people conscious of the language and to stimulate the kids to try hard to learn. And plus have greatly advanced the amount of material we have to work with for school material and literacy material and stories and conversational material. We've worked on all those things in the language workshop, in these workshops. Are there any questions right now? Yes?
Sir, is there any evidence of people in Siberia that spoke or still speak Athabascan?
No. In the 50s, a guy ventured a theory of Athabascan being related to Chinese, and some people, as soon as they hear that, they think, oh, gee, it's established, but it hasn't been established, and there's no connection between any native languages in America and those of Siberia, other than the obvious ones of the fact that there's some Eskimo dialects right on the other shores of the Bering Straits. But other than that, there are no deeper linguistic connections that have ever been proved between North America and Siberia. Possibly there will be. Yes?
I just wondered, has there ever been any suggestion or any evidence that there was ever any writing or any historical type stuff or any?
Not in any Athabascan language. You have things like the Mayan hieroglyphics and things like that, which indicate a developed writing system, but not in Athabascan, no.
How are these languages purely kind of functional, or can you, do they have the capability of getting into poetic descriptions?
Sure.
Or talking, describing Richard Nixon, or any, getting into the finer points?
Sure. Oh, yeah. You name it. These 2 people are very articulate speakers of the language, very imaginative speakers of the language, and are constantly coining new words and thinking up interesting ways to say things. They're very articulate. They're as articulate in their languages as very articulate speakers are of English. And yes? We're going to have Peter read to you in a few minutes. Okay, we can have more questions later. The highlight and the final thing we want to talk about today, I want to tell you a little bit about Peter's development as a writer and a specialist of his language. Used to be, when I came to Kenai, when we first started working together, and he'd say, "Oh, you again," you know, and felt like I was kind of overworking him and tiring him out. And now, it's the other way around. I can't keep up with him. He does all this. See, I started teaching, well, actually I didn't start teaching Peter how to write his language. I really didn't think he was going to be that interested at first, you know, and he'd watch me write, and he would never write anything down or anything. And then last winter, about January or so, he picked up a pencil and said, "Well, I think I better learn this." And he started learning to write his language. And he just kept pecking away at it and getting better and better and better. And now he's fantastically good at it, and he's working in the Alaska Native Writers Project this year through Alaska Native Language Center, because he can write independently. He can sit down and write out stories and things, and so he has a part-time job doing that this winter. And well, it's just been a great deal of a great source of satisfaction for me to watch him develop as a writer, even though we argue a lot more now than we used to. He's correcting me all the time in my spelling, and I'm very happy about that. Very proud to be corrected by Peter, because he's not always right, but he's right a good portion of the time. And then at least I'm right often enough to start up a good argument. And he has done a number of things which are extremely important for the documentation of the history and culture of his people. He's done the first translation of any religious work, and his translation of the Lord's Prayer, which he's been working on for a long time. It's a very nice, I think a very brilliant translation from the point of view of the language, a very exciting translation, the way he found to put things, just the terms he came up with for things, for very abstract things like "Thy kingdom come," and he found very sensible, very interesting ways to say those things. And his stories like Suktu, and then the new one coming out, Lachai Suktu, the gambling story, and this one, the mouse story, show all kinds of rich details, the humor of the people, and rich details about the life of the people, and the wisdom of the elders, and the proper way for a person to grow up, the values of the society, the notions of thrift and cleanliness, and constantly preparing the food, preparing for winter, and just the beautiful details of Dena'ina life are in his stories. And now he's starting to write things on his own and coming up with ideas constantly. In his first week on this writer's project, he wrote 3 stories. And then a week ago, he wrote another one, a little longer one, which he's going to read for you today. Peter joins the company of a very select few speakers of Native American languages who've reached this degree of skill in his writing, and it's really of no small significance. There are other Dena'inas coming up too in the ranks in writing. We have a man in Dalton who is close to being an independent writer of the language. We have some people in Tyonek who are learning very well, and speakers of the language who are learning to write well. Shall we? Pardon? No, I think I can hold this one here. You want to read your story? Yes. Let's read it. Peter's going to read you a story. He wrote this in his own hand last week. I don't know if you want to introduce it a little. he writes these things in his own hand. For example, this is his notebook. I typed it out for him, and he prefers to read his own handwriting. This is going to show you that this is his handwriting is very neat, and that's true too. I just went through the trouble of typing this out, and he decided to read his own handwriting. So his notes are going to be preserved at the University of Alaska too. At least copies of his notes will be there at the library in the University of Alaska. You want to introduce that a little, or?
Want me to read it, then you can translate it later.
Okay. Tell him a little bit about what's going to happen here.
Okay. First.
Yeah.
Iday nachta. Chwachale nachta. It's hello friends and hello sweetheart. I'll read it in the Nana the way I wrote it. Jim can translate it in English.
Well, go ahead.
Taslin chistan nakajiki kampa nakis in the Kalik. It's to Niskoch kocht an taslin chistan diskeritas. Kaldina nilabna an gedacht no katjak nechkilchint no te wonen kacht no sokoyacht ana kunk akkeresla soko balalka kankeresnik it och dulzer tek antudel niskon soko tek aktel kekis in de klech skabo kwatoreter Jener auch gericht. Kes in ein Ekasiaschik an Achtast ei. $1.25 gericht. Kaldina kes in kleine Kulten. Es ist aber so Stunden Chikaluschen. So auch nun ist gleich. Yarli Jan Kalachpo. Zilhat na yashikut aisach. Yitko nakank you Joko Nutu etush kaboren Bulhut bar nitel nicht ilk chorel eet aturqat. Yitko nakank chanlache il chikal il. Galdi kamukan nislog tatalqat nisl tatalqat dat niskud chikul ilchu niskhach aqudach kaldina tikt altshek qumshi qanchi knuya oqol akh kaldina tikt qumshi qutsal yadaqot anayul qadi oqol akh Usna nistu nalis nutaslik. Sok on nalit kasach ju kekor an kasnikitas nutnaslik ju kerelnak nistu ksach itkon usna ona astich nechtel nektis ju suktu noch kalnish. Unschkt nicht so, kadok nicht. Yitkalit usukto Chizach 1921 Katudoshnikch. Yitkocht ana Ijikustak Chijil.
Cheta is the station. Cheta is station.
Oh. Yitkocht ana Ijikustak Cheta is station. That's me. Look at Aduch Nilach Dalze Yak Nilkutch Rota Nakalek Klakun Company Burhut and at Ndachtoch Kabakayach Killan Yachtung Tulik.
Tell me some people who speak Athabascan, and a couple of people told me, well, I don't think you'll find anybody that really knows Athabascan. It was all mixed around here. They knew a little Russian and a little Eskimo and a little Indian, and it wasn't really a language, and there was a pejorative impression that the people had of the language. This is entirely false. The language that these people speak is the pure stuff. It's its own language. It's just as capable of expressing any kind of abstract thought as any other language is. Just because they don't happen to have a new word for television or a satellite or something doesn't limit the language from saying that or describing that or something like that. And it can adapt to new situations and express abstract concepts just beautifully, and in fact, I think some ways in a very superior way. I want to give you a running translation of this. I haven't written a translation, but this is a story about Peter's youth in Tatlinchishant, which is the Indian name for Polly Creek, where they used to go for clam digging. I was going to introduce it a little bit before he read, but that's all right. Peter he was raised on that side of the inlet. He was born in Californsky Village, and he lived over here for a while, and then when he was young, his uncle, Theodore Chikalushin, raised him over there in Polly Creek, and that was the site of the clam digs. The story goes like this. Snug Harbor, for Snug Harbor Company, they used to dig clams, and lots of different people used to get together at Polly Creek. The name for Polly Creek is Tatlinchishant, which means where we found a whale, is the place name, where we found a whale. Some were from Iliamna, some were from Seldovia, Kodiak, Ninilchik, Tyonik, Kenai. They were all there. There weren't any houses, and everyone lived in tents, and everyone put up tents and stayed there. When the mudflats would appear, when the tide would go out, everyone would go out to the mudflats. They would dig clams. A scow would be brought to them and would buy their clams. One gas box full of clams they would buy for $1.25. Some of those people really knew how to dig. My uncle, the uncle that I stayed with, Theodore Chikalushin, was the best clam digger. On a good day, he would dig 20 boxes of clams. And then they would go back, and the high tide would come in, and the scow would come up next, a boat would come up next to a scow, and they would take the clams, and they would leave a different boat behind. Then the people would go back there, and they would play the gambling game. Chinlaha is a gambling game with sticks. And they would play cards, and they would play this bowling game, kamuga. And they would play a game of pushing and pulling sticks. And they would play different games, and they would wrestle with one another. Then some of the people would go out hunting for black bear and porcupine and beaver. And some others would go hunting beluga or seal or whatever foods that the people wanted. I used to build a steam bath for the old people, and they would take a steam bath, and I would put the rocks on the fire for the different people. When evening would come, the old men would go off together and tell stories. They would say, "Come," to me, and I would listen to them. Those stories and songs I haven't heard since 1921. All the people would call each other as they were related to each other, and therefore I don't remember their names. When fall would come, the company boat would take them back to their villages. I think now we have the prospects for a coordinated Tenaina language effort or something in the different areas of Tenaina country, and I'm hoping that we will have more writers develop in the language, and already we're assured of Tenaina being a very well documented language and develops more of an appreciation of a very ingenious people, and I hope that the practical effort, the school programs and things will grow, and there'll be increased coordination throughout Cook Inlet. I'm particularly concerned about areas like Kenai and Eklutna where there isn't so much likelihood of a formal school program. I'm concerned about them being involved with the other villages that do have school programs in some way so that the old people can get together and visit. And so that's all. I know we've gone over and a lot of you have had to leave, but be happy to stay for questions, or we could talk later at dinner. Yes?
I'd like to know how encouraging is the interest of the younger generation in learning the parent language?
Well, I don't want to speak for anybody directly, but we have a number of younger people coming to Peter's and Fedosia and Bertha's night class now. They're Kenai people. And the enthusiasm is very high in Tyonek School, and the kids are, you're really motivated and trying hard. Yes?
Can you translate $1.25 in 1921? In other words, can you translate?
Oh, I was going to mention that. We could say $1.25, Did you think about that? $1.25 was it? Kuz Chani Dinky. Tsif Kai Chulan, that would be it. Kuz Chani Dinky Tsif Kai Chulan. Right?
No.
Yeah, there is a native money system, very interesting money system. 5 cents is a beaver caster. Fedosia is nudging me here. So, are there any other questions right now, anyway? Well, I apologize for running so long over time.
On behalf of the speakers today, thank you. I'll turn this back over to Peggy. They will all be around the rest of the conference if you have any specific questions you wish to ask.
I see that Sylvia has gone, and is there anyone who wants to go to the Russian Orthodox Church? You have transportation. Father Turgonsky has been there. Hopefully somebody showed up. If not, the Bicentennial Commission people meet 7:30 tomorrow in the city manager's office, and so see you about 6:30 at the Kenai Armory.
And
Yes?
make it very clear that includes the members of the mayor's committee.
Yes, the Mayor's Bicentennial Committee. Right. Okay.
It's kind of early, but we'll get a good start for tomorrow.
It's been a long day, but quite an experience. See you at 6:30.